morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to How to Prepare for Tax Season, the Ultimate Guide. My name is Roberta Burrows, and I'm a board member at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. For those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit that is building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. As you will see in the chat in a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. Check out those links and resources in the chat. So a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Firstly, let us know where you're dialing in from in the chat. Chime in. Secondly, we're going to open it up for live Q&A at the end of the event. So please submit your questions for us in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. We will try our best to get to all of them. And lastly, could not begin this conversation without saying this. None of this we do could be possible at the center without all of the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, BMO, who's presenting this program today, Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Microsoft Entrepreneurship for Positive Impact, BPM, and HubSpot for Startups. We are humbled by their contributions and hope you are grateful too. So before we get started, our team's going to launch a few polls just to step back and take a temperature gauge of how you all are doing today. How are you feeling? Okay. And then we have those are the results, just giving an idea of what the audience is feeling. And then what is keeping you up at night? As you're running your businesses, coming into this tax season, looking at last year. Finance. Okay, well, you've come to the right event. Okay, well, thank you for that. And without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our first special guest, Gary Williams, Senior Tax Manager at KPMG. And also too, I would like to introduce Denise Pachuca, who's going to be our moderator for today. Thank you, Denise. And joining me in welcoming the next guest, Chelsea Elliott, founder of Sumocom Lab. Aisha Fatima Dozier, founder and CEO of Boston Cosmetics. Francois Chadwick, partner at KPMG. Thank you all, and I'm going to pass it on to you, Denise.
Well, hello, everyone. Yeah, I think I'm next. Thanks, Roberta.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Williams. I am a senior tax manager in KPMG in their San Francisco office, and really looking forward to speaking with you today. Anna, can we go ahead and share the slides? Perfect. All right. So let's be honest, tax. It's the elephant in the room. It's complicated, it's comprehensive, and people spend their entire careers trying to understand the hows, the whens, the whys, the whats. But as business owners, you can't just leave tax to the professionals. You have to have some sort of understanding. And so I'm really looking forward today to speaking with you on navigating the tax basics for startups. Next slide. I'd like to start off just by saying that everything I say today is general in nature. It doesn't contemplate your specific facts and circumstances. Next slide. So we've got a lot of entrepreneurs on this call, and you all have great ideas. You have done your market research, you understand your customer base, and you've developed a business plan that you are ready to implement. But my question to you all is, have you thought about the tax? If the answer is no, then you're not necessarily ready. And that is because tax is an important component of your business, and it should be thought of throughout the life cycle of your company. Oftentimes in the early stages, it's not, and that miss can have lasting impacts. Next slide. So why should you care about tax? As I said, tax is an important component of your business. Therefore, the business decisions that you make have some sort of tax implications, whether that's where and how much you pay in taxes, non-compliance, which could result in fines and penalties at the federal, state, and or local jurisdiction levels. Your tax structures and your tax positions can change the way that you are viewed by potential investors. And lastly, your business runs better when tax is not an afterthought. Next. So what are we going to discuss today? I am going to help you understand some of these basics. The first, what are the key business decisions that impact your taxes? The second, what are the common tax filings for the startup? And the third, what types of taxes are due and when? Next. So choosing your business structure, step one. Next. Why is it important? Well, when thinking about a company structure, it could potentially shield or commingle your personal assets and your business liabilities. Your company structure largely determines how your business income is taxed. And a well-organized and defined structure is attractive to investors. Next. So there's several common company structures. One is a sole proprietorship, and that's perhaps the most simple. It is because there is one owner, and that owner owns all of the business. There's no distinction between your business and your personal, therefore your personal assets and your business liabilities are commingled. And the income and expense of your sole proprietorship is reported to the IRS directly on your individual tax return. A partnership. It's similar to a sole proprietorship, except a partner has two or more partners in the partnership. There's several different types of partnerships, including LLCs, also known as limited liability corps. A partnership files a US tax return itself, called a 1065, but partnerships don't pay income, or don't pay tax. Instead, they pass through that income and expense to their partners. Those partners receive what we call a Schedule K-1, which is their share of the overall partnership income. And then those partners take that K-1 and report the income and loss from it on their tax returns. Next. A C Corp or a corporation. From a federal tax perspective, one of the major differences between a C Corp and a partnership is a concept called double taxation. Whereas a partnership passes through income directly to its partners and doesn't pay tax at the entity level, a C Corp does pay tax at its entity level. And then, upon those earnings being distributed to those to their shareholders, the shareholders pay tax on that dividend at their level. Again, double taxation, once at the entity level and again at the shareholder level. An S Corp. It's a bit of a hybrid between a C Corp and a partnership. It functions similarly to a C Corp in the sense that the business liabilities are shielded from its shareholders, but it aligns more closely to a partnership in the sense that it's not required to pay tax at its entity level and therefore passes through that income and loss to its shareholders. An important thing to keep in mind, however, is that S Corps have very specific rules regarding their status. For example, the number of shareholders that can own an S Corp. And so these specific rules are something that you want to keep in mind when looking at this entity. Next slide. Single member LLCs and multi-member LLCs. I won't touch too much on this other than to say from a tax reporting standpoint, they can function very similar to a sole proprietorship or a partnership. However, with LLCs, there is a concept called checking the box. And that is, an LLC can check the box to be treated as a C corporation by filing the Form 8832 with the IRS. And in that case, an LLC would be treated from tax purposes very closely to a C corporation. Next. So what are the key takeaways from choosing your structure? Well, first, and really almost most important, there is no right structure. It depends on your business and it depends on your goals. For example, one of the things that you may want to do down the line is get outside investors. Angel investors and venture capitalists, they generally prefer to invest in stock deals or C corporations. However, they do often invest in pass-throughs as well. So to keep in mind, it depends on your business and on your goals. Another thing to keep in mind is the difference between a C Corp and a partnership. As I said before, in the case of a partnership, it doesn't pay entity level tax from a US federal tax perspective and instead passes that income through to its partners. Whereas a C Corp pays tax at the entity level and then again at the shareholder level. And as always, it's really important to review your business and these considerations with a tax advisor. Next slide. Second, registration and incorporation. Next. So you've created the entity structure, but now it is time to register your business. That can be done once at the federal level by applying online with the IRS to get a federal EIN. But don't forget about the states. You may be required to register with the Secretary of State. Next. There's also a level of incorporation. Most companies incorporate in Delaware, but again, you have to look at the specific facts and circumstances of your business. It might make sense to also incorporate in other states. Have you thought about overseas transactions? That's also another consideration. Next. Common startup tax filings. Next. So we talked a little bit about income tax from a federal tax perspective, but don't forget there is state income tax. There's also sales tax. There's value added taxes in case you're doing transactions overseas. There's state franchise tax, which is not based off of income at all. There's payroll tax should you have employees, and there's other miscellaneous taxes such as the SF payroll tax that may be applicable based off of your local jurisdiction. Next. Nexus and sales tax. So Nexus is a state and local tax concept. I like to think of Nexus as presence, but an important reminder is presence doesn't always have to be physical. So just because you don't have a building in a particular state doesn't mean you do not have Nexus. And it's important to remember that every state defines Nexus differently. So some of the questions you need to ask and consult with a tax advisor on are, of course, where do I have a physical presence? But also, where are my employees living or doing business? Where are my sales coming from? And all of those questions can lead you to the answers regarding your nexus exposure and your state and local tax exposure for your business. Next. Payroll. So congratulations. You are running a successful business. You've created that structure. You've analyzed the state, local, and Fed tax implications, and you've decided to hire your first employee. Well, with new situations and fact patterns, oftentimes brings another tax. And that's the case with payroll tax. I won't talk too much about payroll tax other than to remind you that there is an employee and employer component to that payroll tax. Next slide. And you can certainly outsource that payroll tax function to a third party. We know you have lots to think about, but don't forget that you are ultimately responsible and obligated for making sure that those payments are made on time and correctly. Next. Compensation and equity structuring. So again, I won't go too much on equity or some form of ownership in your business, other than to say, as you think throughout the life cycle of your company and you start to think about growth and expansion, offering some sort of equity to employees to align the passion and success of your business may make sense. Next. And lastly, or excuse me, not lastly, tax reporting, timelines, and key forms. So here are a series of common tax forms, but I would like to note that this is not a comprehensive list. Some may be applicable to you, others may not. For example, earlier on, we talked about entity structuring. Well, C Corps and S Corps must file what we refer to as an 1120 with a federal tax return. Some may depend on your situations, such as if you have an employee, you need to be cognizant of W-2s. And other tax forms depend on your jurisdictions. Are you operating in California of some sort? Are you operating in San Francisco? What I want you to keep in mind is that while we talk about busy season, which is concentrated in March and April, September and October, a season is one part of the year. All of these tax forms aren't necessarily due at the same time. And so keeping tax in mind throughout the life cycle of your company and throughout the year, make sure that your busy season is a lot less busy. Thank you for letting me speak with you today. I really enjoyed it. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate that. And also too, for everyone in the audience, I got a little excited about our panel. Gary was amazing in terms of providing a good foundation from KPMG. Thank you again. So let's move on to the rest of our program. And I'd like to introduce to you who's going to be running our panel, Denise Pachuca.
Thank you, Roberta. Again, my name is Denise Pachuca. I work with BMO Bank under our Zero Barriers to Business program. This is a part of our BMO's multi-million dollar, 40 to be specific, $40 billion Empower commitment aimed to closing the racial wealth gap for women, Black, and Latin, as well as Native American-owned businesses. We continue to do this by fostering and committed $16.5 billion specifically to provide us the opportunity to lend again to Black, Latin, women, and Native Americans. Our goal is to equip business owners with access to capital, access to financial literacy and tools, as well as access to partnerships, as like the one that we have today with NASDAQ. I'd like to pass it over now to Francois so he can say a little bit about why he's joining us today here in the panel.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much. So Francois Chadwick, I am a partner at KPMG. I focus on our emerging growth practice. I've actually been a partner at KPMG for a number of times. I've actually been an operator. I've been in business. I've scaled businesses. I've grown businesses. And so I've seen it on both sides of the table. Right now, I help a lot of different companies of all sorts of sizes and scale within the US and going global as it relates to their different types of tax. I'm going to pass it over to Chelsea, but I do believe that Gary, one of my colleagues, did a great introduction to all the taxes one needs to think about as you are continuing to grow and scale your business. So Chelsea, over to you.
Thank you, Francois. So my name is Chelsea Elliott. I'm the founder and CEO of SomoCom Lab, where we help people connect and communicate more effectively by improving their emotional intelligence. And so I wanted to join this panel to help people like me to understand what all it takes to grow. So this is not my first business, but it's the first time I've done it right. And I'm really committed to making sure I keep this going. And so the things that I've learned in the finance area, which is not my strong suit by any stretch, but I've learned a lot and I'm proud of where I've gotten. So I wanted to help other people to understand from my perspective, you know, how they can support themselves and make sure they stay in business. So I will pass it on to Aisha.
Thank you, Chelsea. Good morning to everyone who's on the West Coast. My name is Aisha Fatima Dozier. Everybody calls me Aisha. I am the founder and CEO of Bossy Cosmetics. I actually got involved with the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. I think it was 4 years ago. I was part of the Milestone Maker program. It's been a great accelerator program for me since then. The company's grown quite a bit, but I'll tell you what we do. As I said, Bossy Cosmetics, we exist to ignite confidence in women who self-identify as being ambitious, and we do that through exquisitely crafted cosmetics, engaging in topical content, and essential services like coaching. We're almost 5 years old as a business, so I like to say we're small but mighty. We're in over 600 retail doors. We sell on Amazon. We sell on our own D2C site, and we are launching in a couple of weeks at Nordstrom. So it's just been a really exciting time for us, and I have the same philosophy now with taxes as I did when I started. And so I really want to talk about how you need to stay consistent, even when you have $1 in sales to when you're a couple $1 million in sales. It's really important to get it right from the beginning. So thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for sharing so much information as to why you're joining us today. I'd like to start the panel discussion with Francois. What essential steps should a new business take when setting up a new accounting system from the beginning?
Yeah, Denise, thank you for that. I think whenever you think about a new business, you've obviously got to think about your system and your cash, right? You're setting up the business. Where's the cash going, right? These are like some of the very, very first few things, right? What are you spending on? Where's the money going? Where's your revenue? Where's that coming from? And the reason I say all of that is you're not just running your business and getting it up off the ground and making key decisions as you're going through the first year, the second year, the third year, as Aisha mentioned, coming through the 5th year of her business. But the tax authorities are also going to be asking the same things. So the more that you can track it, the easier it's going to be whenever, and at some point it will happen, some tax authority comes along. Because whenever you go into business, there is always this third party that's out there that wants to know what's going on. And that's the tax authorities. As Gary mentioned, you've got various different tax authorities. You've got the federal IRS, you've got the state authorities. As you go overseas, maybe start selling through different channels, you've got the international tax authorities, you've got income taxes, you've got indirect taxes. So the ability to be able to track all of your income, all of your expenses, all of your potential tax liabilities, that's what you've got to think about very early on. What you don't want to do is ignore this. I mean, from a business standpoint, you want to make sure you know exactly where you are from a business standpoint. And from a tax authority standpoint, you want to do the same. So making sure you have a system where you know where everything is and it's simple to map, that's all I would recommend. Denise, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Francois. I'd like to actually ask now a question to Aisha. As a business owner yourself, are there any tips that you would give the audience today when tracking expenses? You know, there's a lot of receipts that you guys need to keep and track. Any insight that you have with respects to that?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think being attentive to detail is incredibly important in anything you do in life, in business, etc. So I use a system which I've used from the beginning called QuickBooks. And over time, I've just increased the type of the subscription I have. I don't know if many entrepreneurs are familiar with it, but as Francois said, you know, cash is king or queen, whichever you want to bow to. You really need to be able to follow your cash flow. And I think QuickBooks is a really easy way to do that, because if you plug it into your systems, your order management system, we use Shopify, everything can connect quite nicely. And then you make a few tweaks here and there, and you start to be able to put together, you know, what financial people call 3 statement accounts, which is your income statement, your balance sheet, and your statement of cash flows. Those are 3 incredibly important statements. Now, you asked about receipts. I take pictures of everything. So it's really easy, guys. Take a snapshot, you go out or somebody does something, take a picture of it and upload it on Google Drive. I'm assuming everybody has an email account. So just create an account for receipts. I take a picture of everything and I put them all in buckets. So if it's supplies for the office, whatever it is, I put the receipts there, but generally everything goes into QuickBooks. The other thing I will say for receipts is please make sure if you are hiring, so in my business, I work with a lot of small entrepreneurs who create content for us. Many of them don't have LLCs or anything like that, but I get W-9s from them. Now, here's why that's important, because when you're now, what we're going to talk about later, filing your taxes, your accountant is going to say, okay, where's the W-9 on this person, that person? And if you worked with them 9 months ago, you can't track them, they don't respond. So I would just say when you're working with someone, a content creator or someone like that, get all the information that you need before you even pay them so that you are covered for that fiscal year. Does that answer your question, Denise?
Well, that more than answered it. Thank you. I was like, so definitely stay organized, however that works for you and whatever system that you use. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'd like to now ask, I'm going to go back to Francois. I'm going to ask you another question with respect to potential tax consequences when businesses are growing, potentially expanding, restructuring. What advice would you give around that to ensure that they have positive outcomes?
Yeah, I think it's very similar. Stay organized, capture all the invoices, capture all the details. The one thing I would say, I think you've got a set of rules, tax rules, as it relates to the US. But then as you start to go overseas, there's a whole other host of tax rules. And making sure you don't fall foul of anything as it relates to, especially indirect taxes. So in the US, that's sales taxes. Overseas, Gary mentioned this earlier, it's value-added taxes. And these are taxes where if you don't account, excuse me, if you don't account for them correctly, they may fall on you. And the average rate of a sales tax across the US is about 8 to 10%. Overseas on that VAT, it's 20%. If you don't account for it correctly, where you are charging the customer, then that tax may fall on you. And if your profit margin, if your margin on your sales is less than that, then you're going to make a loss on every sale. So those are key things you want to think about. And if you're selling through, and Aisha mentioned this, sometimes you're going to be selling through a third-party platform. I've seen startup businesses where they think the third-party platform is going to deal with these taxes. Make sure and confirm if they are or if they are not, because if they are not, then it falls back on you. And what you can't do is continue to sort of put your head in the sand and miss those taxes. So as you grow, especially as you go international, think about all those additional taxes.
Wow, thank you so much. So I heard be organized and get the details, right? Especially if you're in different multiple platforms trying to sell your product. So thank you. I'd like now to ask a question to Chelsea. I know that you mentioned that you've had multiple business, some that didn't quite work out, and now you're in the business entrepreneur phase again. So if you could share something, maybe in respects to when you're thinking about the taxes, like, right? Something that you wish you would have known early on when you even launched your first business.
Yeah, so as Aisha had mentioned, making sure that you have a place to store your accounting. And so I use QuickBooks as well. And when I finally hired an accountant, we were going through things and I'm like, I have all of this down. This is perfect. I know my numbers. And she was like, oh, you need to upgrade your account in order for this to be right, because you don't have access to certain reports with this profile. And so I had to pay more in order to upgrade my QuickBooks account. And then everything finally started to fall into place and make sense. And so knowing that earlier would have been really helpful. But also knowing that I should have had an accountant earlier would have been even better. So that's something that I definitely recommend to people, is to speak to it, become friends with an accountant, know somebody that you have in mind at least, and make sure that you connect with them as soon as you are able to. Also, like they say, just with like when you're working a job, the more you make, the more they take. The taxes are real. They're there, and they're gonna come and get them one way or another. So make sure that you understand what all taxes you're paying. I didn't realize that I had to pay sales tax at first, and then someone else was telling me about theirs, and I was like, oh, I'm selling products too. So there was a sales tax bill that was due. I also learned that there are certain ways that you can group your taxes. So I know people sometimes pay them quarterly, some pay them annually. You can do the same with your sales taxes. So just know what all is expected of you before you jump in, because those can be very costly. And like Francois said, if your margins are not where they should be, you're going to just be throwing money out the door every time you make a sale, and you're going to lose big time. So those are things that I think are really, really important.
I love how you said that it would have been very beneficial to have started that relationship earlier, to just have more insight on how to continue and be ready for tax time. So I want to stay in that same type of discussion today. So I'm going to ask the next question to both Aisha and Chelsea. How has having the right team helped your business, and who is the right team? As a business owner, if you guys can both share some insight on that. Whichever one of you guys wants to go first.
I don't mind going first. So I absolutely love having an assistant slash online business manager. She is everything. I double book myself constantly, and she helps me with that. I can finally breathe now that I have someone like her. I also have a W-2 employee that I work with 3 days a week, and that has been super helpful so that I don't have to be on site constantly. So just having people around you that are great at what they do, are committed and passionate to the work that they do, and can help take some of the weight off of your shoulders so that you can grow and you can go out and do the things that you're supposed to do as a business owner, not constantly just um, working on your business constantly, like or working in your business. Sorry, you need to work on your business on the outside with doing the taxes and the financial stuff. So hiring people that help to take the load off of that. I also have software that I consider my team. So because I have a W-2 employee, I use Gusto. That helps with the 1099s too. It is amazing. The fee is nothing compared to hiring somebody to do the work, themselves, but there's a whole onboarding process, and it pays the taxes for you. It just makes things so smooth. And so I consider a lot of the software that I use, like Asana, and just a lot of different software programs that I use to be a part of the team, because it makes it just so much simpler and so amazing. I also have someone doing social media, because that's very time consuming as well. So just making sure you have the right people around you that fits your business structure and what you're looking to do and how you're looking to grow is definitely where to go.
Yeah, I would echo everything that Chelsea said. Software is important. Software is eating the world, and you can use software to really leverage things for yourself. We use Gusto as well. I would say that you have to, in the beginning, I probably did almost everything myself because, you don't have a lot of capital. We don't have venture capital funding. So I had to really learn every single thing about the business, which is great because then you get into this thing that my coach taught me, which is your zone of genius versus your zone of efficiency. And essentially, your zone of genius is the stuff that you're really gifted at, your purpose. You are in a state of flow when you're doing those things, like the strategy, the vision, new product development is my zone of genius. My zone of efficiency is packing orders, packing boxes, taking them to the post office, all of that. So that's what I did in the beginning. But then as the business started to grow, I separated the two and I started to build a team around my zone of efficiency. And so, for instance, there are things like I definitely cannot make a lipstick like the lipstick I'm making now. And so I understood that I needed to have a really great partner. And so when I started the company, I really interviewed some of the top cosmetic manufacturers in the world because I knew that I couldn't do it myself. So I have done something quite interesting that's worked really well for us is we've leveraged a lot of agencies and a lot of contract manufacturers and third-party logistics providers. I think when you're huge, like a L'Oreal or a Coty, you can do a lot of stuff in-house, but when you're small, you really need to figure out what you can do yourself. And so all of our packaging is manufactured offshore. All of our manufacturing is actually fulfilled and done offshore and shipped in. I have a studio where I'm working now, and we have a space where we do all of our fulfillment ourselves. Content creators, I have someone who works with content creators. So it's really about finding the best people to do the right thing. And then you may not be able to afford to pay them a salary, right? So my product designer has worked with me from day one, and I've paid her a salary, but no one else in this company other than me is on a salary, right? I just hired someone now to help me do operations and customer excellence. So it's about leveraging the different strengths you have, the things you're really great at, outsourcing the things you're not good at. And there are really great resources out there like Fiverr. There's so many platforms and software where you can find people who can do things for you, and you just pay them each time you need the work done. So that's the way we started. I'm only now building a team in my office, and that's 5 years in.
I'm sorry.
Wow,
I
thank
wanted
you.
to also, I'm sorry. I love everything that Aisha just said. Like that is what really helped me to learn how to expand and know when it was time to do that and really tighten up my financials was when I started feeling stupid about certain things. When I started feeling like, oh man, I can't do this. What's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me. I can't do this. And I have ADHD. And so I'm all over the place, like all the time. Numbers are not my thing. I just throw them all over the place. And so when I started feeling bad about myself and feeling down about my business, I was like, okay, I need people that are in their zone of genius being able to do this. So I hired a fulfillment center to do my orders because that was taking up so much energy and time. I have my assistant who is phenomenal with managing things. So like just making sure that I have certain people and certain things in place because I wanted to make sure I was operating, feeling in what I know and in what I can do really well. And so, yes, it costs. Yes, it's scary to pay that money out sometimes, but it is so worthwhile when you can go out there and be your best self and people can see that because you're able to delegate the things that don't, where other people are the best in that area. So I love everything you just said, Aisha. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I heard a lot of great stuff. All right. I heard how to use some of the different platforms like QuickBooks to help get you ready. I also heard how it's okay not to take everything on. Use some different platforms, like you mentioned. Know your industry. Find people who are doing the exact same thing you are, so that you can delegate something to someone else. I also heard how it's okay to have employees and give them some tasks to do so that you can focus on your strategy, right? And actually growing and scaling your business. So thank you for sharing all of that. I'd like to now ask both of you ladies again, a little bit different this time. Like if you guys can tell me, right, who are the right people outside of, you mentioned before, like a CPA, who are other people that it's important to have in the back, especially when you're thinking about, at some point you're going to need access to capital, other things like that. So just to understand, as you're growing and scaling, who are additional people that are good to have in your team?
Well, I will say, so we've raised about $1.5 million, and we did that from angel investors. And I was very careful around the people that I brought on the cap table. So I don't want institutional money yet. And that's my own personal decision. But I did want some capital to expand a couple of years ago. But I found people who, I wanted to create my personal board of advisors. So I don't have a board of directors, but I wanted to be able to tap into people who are brilliant, who understand the sector, who understand the role of being a CEO, who understand how to build teams, who understand how to scale businesses. And once someone has written you a check, they're basically telling you, I'm behind you, right? So not only do you get the capital, but you get their support. So I can text up any of my investors and say, listen, I need to talk to you. I need to get some advice. Do you know anybody in this area that you can introduce me to? So it's basically having a board of advisors who is now working for you. And I would say that's been instrumental to the brand's growth, is just leveraging the right people on your cap table and then making them become ambassadors of the brand and making them become your CEO support. One of my investors, I have a call with him every month. He's a very established CEO, sits as board chair on public companies. And so he is now my mentor as a result. So I think it's putting the right people around you. If you are a solo founder, which I am, Chelsea, I don't know if you are, it is the hardest and loneliest thing you will ever do in your life. Like, honestly, it is so hard. It is a mental and emotional jungle gym. And so you really need to put the right people around you. That means family, friends. And the other thing that has been powerful for me is a network of other founders, because sometimes no one else knows what it's like than someone who's sitting in the same seat as you. So just to answer your question, have the right people around you, avoid the wrong people, because there are a lot of wrong people to put around you. I prior to starting this business, I worked as an investment banker for 2 decades. So in the beginning, people were like, oh, you don't have to hire a CPA, you know numbers. I'm like, yeah, I do, but that's not what I should be doing. So don't be arrogant about your skill set. Focus on what the business needs you to be doing, and then surround yourself with people who are excellent at those things.
Oh my goodness. I love this so much. I completely echo all of that. Um, Make sure that you have a good relationship with some bankers. People used to say that all the time, and I didn't really understand it until I needed financing, and now me and the banker are besties. Make sure that you know what you're signing and what you're getting into, but they can help you with that. But when you have a relationship with them, it helps the process flow. They advocate for you a little bit differently. They know how to speak up on your behalf. It makes a night and day difference. So make sure you have a good relationship with a banker. Like Aisha said, it is a very lonely journey. And especially if you're a person that just got your head down, you're just working, working, working. Before you know it, you're like, where'd all my friends go? Where is everyone? And so it's important to have your buckets of people that you can go to. I know for a fact who I can call when I need to celebrate something and get really hyped up. I know who I can call, who I can cry with. I know who I can call when I need somebody to give me some quick advice on something that I've been struggling with, and they're like, "Oh, I got it like that." Um, and then you're gonna have your haters, and so you just let those people go. But make sure that you have your business besties, your business bros, like some people, a group of people that can hold you accountable, that can help you think through things, that can be a sounding board, because it does get lonely and things move very quickly. And the fact that there are so many small businesses out there, but so many of them don't make it to the 10-year mark, a lot of people are trying to do this themselves. Don't do that. Absolutely do not do that. We need community. We are here for community. Find that community for yourself. Make sure that that's like number one. You're not doing emotional intelligence work. That is number one, because you will absolutely lose your mind. You find out who you are very quickly when you're the one that is blamed for all the things that are going on, because you realize that you're not good at this, you're not good at that, you're not good at this. Oh my gosh, I need to upskill in that. And you can drown yourself pretty quickly in all the things that you're not great at. So make sure that you have people and have a good relationship with some bankers.
I love it. Thank you, ladies. I heard networking, get together, right? Use and build other relationships with other entrepreneurs like yourself, because they're on the same journey. They might be able to give you some insight, especially if they have some insight about your specific industry, right? Some of the hurdles that they overcame can make it easier for you as you're going through that process and the journey itself. So thank you so much for sharing, ladies. I do want to give some time for Q&A, but before I do that, I wanted to ask Francois another question. A lot of times entrepreneurs are thinking about passing their business, especially once they've had it for a while, to another family member or someone else. So the question is, any tax advice that you would give those that are looking to plan or pass their business to the next generation?
Yeah, totally. And I think this goes to something that Gary was talking about very early on when he gave his presentation. As you're thinking about building your business and growing your business and potentially passing it on, the structure of your business becomes incredibly important. Are you a C Corp, where you are a standalone corporation where you are shareholders, or you are an S Corp or an LLC, which is known as more like a pass-through? Those entity structure questions are going to be critical on how you pass along up through, generations or through to your family. Essentially, you're asking the question, are you passing along the stock or the shares, or are you actually passing along the interest, i.e. the whole business, or potentially the whole business, to a family member? As you're thinking about those things, if that's part of your plan, as you're setting up the business, think about how you want to set that structure up. Is it a pass-through, or is it a C Corp, which is where you own shares in the entity? It's a lot to think about very early on as you're thinking about all the stuff about running the business. Essentially, what I would say is listen to what Chelsea and Aisha are saying, which is like focus on the business, get the business up and running, make it successful. And then later down the line, when you're thinking about maybe passing it along, you can deal with it at that point in time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to the Q&A and I'm going to go over some of the questions that I see that came in throughout the presentation today. I think the first two that I see on here would fit more in your space, Francois, so if you could please take this one. Gabriela Sapp, what is the difference between the 8832 and 2553 forms to be taxed as an S Corp?
Yeah, those forms, I want to be a little careful here, very specific tax advice here. Those forms are just going to determine exactly how you are taxed, right? So it's part of that setup question again. This is where you want to make sure, as you're thinking about your business, as you're thinking about what the business is going to do, as you're thinking about where the profits are going to go, who else may be involved. I think both Chelsea and Aisha mentioned it, where you may get future potential investment money coming in. Think about how you're going to register that business. So those are the forms you choose on how you get taxed. So frankly, as both of Chelsea and Aisha said, take a little bit of advice up front when you're setting up your business. That's what I would say on those forms.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that answer. I think this other one will also fall in your wheelhouse. What tax category does a nonprofit fall under, from Pamela Ross?
Oh, so a nonprofit, firstly, you're going to need to apply to be a nonprofit. You need to get specific nonprofit status from the IRS. And by the way, once you've got it from the IRS, you then need to go and reapply or ask for permission from the particular state you're in. And so there's specific rules about that, whether you're a nonprofit or a foundation or whatever else. And then you've got to meet a set of rules. Once you've got that thing up and running, then you need to make sure you match those rules, like week in, week out, whatever else. There's a whole host of rules around that. To be a nonprofit, once again, I hate to sound like a broken record, you will want to take a little bit of advice, because you don't want to set yourself up and think you are a nonprofit, break the rules, and then somebody come later and say, all that money that you earned is now taxable. That's a very bad surprise.
Perfect. There's a question also on here. I think I can even help answer this one. It is from an anonymous attendee. It just says, for some reason it does, hold on, my business is slow, under 10K a year. I use QuickBooks. For some reason it does not connect to my bank. Do I need to keep all the receipts? My tax preparer told me the bank statement can be the receipts. I want to grow this year, maybe to 50. I would say both. I would listen to what your tax preparer said. Keep the receipts, but I would even go back to your banker and see if maybe there's a way to link it. Because even myself working at BMO, I've had businesses reach out to us before, and there is a way to link. So I would say also talk to your actual banker at the bank that you're at.
Can I, Denise, I'm so sorry. I had this issue and my accountant was like, I don't know what's going on. Every time we log in, we have to do the code and there's something going on. I had to upgrade my account in order for it to link properly. So that might be something to look into. Whoever asked that question, you might have to upgrade your account because it's not at the level where it's going to stay linked permanently. That was like a big deal and huge revelation that I had. It changed everything.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for adding your insight to that too. Because that's another thing that we always say, maybe go back to the actual provider to see if maybe it's something that you're missing in the system that you are paying for. So great advice. I see another question here from Treva T. Which countries do startup companies and or founders need to pay income tax, not sales tax? Any insight on that?
Which companies, which countries?
Countries.
It
So
says companies.
oh,
Which companies you need to pay sales tax on? Is that it?
Mhm.
I'm assuming
That's
if
what
you
it says.
sell items, you have to pay sales tax.
Mhm.
So we're a D2C brand. We have various income streams. We sell products through Amazon. They take the sales tax directly. We sell products when people buy from us directly. We pay sales tax on, because we're in California, we pay sales tax to people who basically, if you order in from California, you will be charged sales tax. We need to remit that. Everywhere else, because we don't have fulfillment centers anywhere, we're fine. When we sell our products to Nordstrom or to JCPenney, we don't pay sales tax. When they sell it to their customer, that's where the tax is paid. But again, I'm telling you what I do. I think one of the most important things you could do is to get a tax person. I, from day one, have somebody file my taxes for me every year, federal, state. I'm registered in Delaware, but I have a foreign qualification here in California. I just found out recently that I needed to be registered in Palo Alto, even though I'm registered in Santa Clara County. So everybody wants a little piece of you as you get bigger and bigger. So just register everywhere.
Love it. So I'm hearing again the same pretty much message we've been sending from the beginning. Talk to a tax advisor, CPA, because they can continue to give you the best advice depending on your business structure and what you're actually selling, right? So again, that message you might continue to hear it throughout today, but that's key. I have another question here. Are there resources to find business tax professionals or finding a business manager? Any insight that you guys can provide on that?
One thing that I recommend is to use referrals from people that are trusted. Make sure that you look at reviews because I know that the tax industry has gotten really big, and there are some people that just have bad intentions. Some people that are like, I'm going to get into this because I need money, and they want to take your money. So make sure that you are talking to people, looking up reviews, making sure that they're on the up and up, that they know what they're doing. They've been in the game for a while. They don't have complaints. Because I worked with a woman before who her tax accountant had messed her taxes up for a few years and nothing ever happened to them, but she was being penalized heavily, heavily. And I was just like, this horrible, absolutely horrible thing that happened. So make sure that whoever you're finding, usually word of mouth, we love word of mouth as business owners. Word of mouth is the best way to go a lot of times. I'm sure there's some reputable places, like if you're looking at different associations, you can look in their directories to find people that are reputable as well. But just make sure that you do your research and do your homework on that company that you're looking into working with.
I love it. I 100% agree. I always say, have a conversation, right? Are they the right match? Like, do you guys sync? Just like, you go to a job interview and they're looking for the right candidate, do your homework too and make sure that, the tax advisor or CPA that you're using matches with you, that you guys sync. So great insight, Chelsea. I have another question here for anyone who would like to answer it. Did you hire, this is from Shanae Rook, did you hire people just for their expertise and did they work part-time? Or did you hire generalists who work full-time and had to do many things from an administrative function?
For me, it was a mixture of both. So for cosmetics, obviously it's a product people use on their bodies. So I needed to make sure that I was not playing around with the quality of people that were focused on the product development and the product design. So my designer that I hired 5 years ago from the beginning, she's based in France. My team is also distributed globally. She's based in France and she's worked in the beauty industry for 15 years. Our contract manufacturer is an old Italian family that has been making cosmetics for generations. So in that regard, with respect to the product, I chose people who are deep, deep, deep in the game, and I'm learning from them. When it comes to fulfilling and packing orders, I could figure that out myself. And then I was looking for, my intern helps with that. As I mentioned earlier, I've just hired someone who's focused on operations and customer excellence. I've worked with marketing people, and I think it depends. There's some areas like marketing, you don't need to have a marketing background from L'Oreal or something for me. I think that you need to really understand the company, you need to understand our DNA, our ethos, and you need to understand what my vision is and then be able to put it into play. And I think a lot of that doesn't require you to have a very specific background. You just have to be curious. And I think curiosity, hunger, and just sort of relentless solutions orientation is critical for that kind of role. But then there's some things like, regulatory, like tax, right? I'm not going to get some random person to do my taxes. I work with a firm that was highly regarded. So there's certain things you need to figure out, the things that you that require expertise, and then get expertise. And then you need to figure out the things that you can work with someone to learn. And I think that one of the most, for me, someone who has a sense of curiosity and is constantly learning, you can really teach them anything.
Thank you so much. We are getting short on time. So again, I wanted to say thank you to Aisha, Chelsea, and Francois for all the wonderful insight that you shared, that I'm hoping a lot of the attendees and entrepreneurs that were on the call today took notes, right? Because a lot of great information was shared. I'd like to kick it back to Roberta for any closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Denise. Thank you, panel, today for sharing some amazing insights to our audience. We really appreciate it and we're thankful for your time. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to the community, share your insights, and set such a great overview. On behalf of the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center and everyone in attendance today, we sincerely thank you for joining us. Also, too, we would love for you to join us as an audience for our upcoming webinars. You can view the upcoming events by using the link in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to welcoming you back online with us soon.